Today's episode is all about the Israeli Defense Forces and their decision to completely drop the M4 as their main infantry rifle in favor of a bullpup called the IWI TAVR family of weapons. Basically, the IDF threw away the M4 when they found a new, better 5.56 rifle. A lot of interesting factors were at play here, including lessons learned from past wars, which we'll get into later in this video. So this gun is manufactured by IWI inside Israel. You probably already know about their other incredibly iconic work, the Uzi, which is probably the most famous Israeli invention next to the falafel. What's that? The origins of the falafel is a fiercely debated and contentious issue? Fair enough, then I'll just stick to less controversial issues like war. One of the reasons they switched to the TAR is the rifle has addressed some of the main complaints against the Bullpup, like the difficulty with awkward reloading. The bolt will now automatically lock to the rear when you run out of ammo. This might seem insignificant, but it actually makes reloading faster because you can just ride the bolt forward after slapping a fresh mag in. The magazine release has also been improved, so all you have to do is move your hand back slightly to drop the mag. The British L85 Bullpup doesn't have those features either. I think the evidence will show this decision to switch away from the M4 rifle comes down to more than simply which rifle is best. Instead, it's more of a matter of which rifle is best for their specific needs of their army. It's like asking which is better, hummus or olive oil. The answer is, of course, pizza. So in just a second, I want to tell you about how the IDF's war with Lebanon led to the adoption of this rifle. But first, partnered message time. Mail call is here. I think you guys are gonna love this. It's called Bespoke Post. They're a monthly subscription box service that delivers straight to you top of the line goods ranging from outdoor gear, travel, barware, and more. Oh, this is awesome. This reminds me of one of the duffel bags that the Army issues you, except it's stylish. And the way it works is you just go to the link in the description, it's free to sign up and try out. You take the personalized quiz so that they know the kind of outdoor gear or clothing that you want sent to you. They're offering you guys, our audience, 20% off by using the code TASKandPurpose20. I know you guys are gonna love this, and I know someone named Knife Guy would really appreciate this. This looks like an ammo box, surviving the great outdoors. There's great tidbits in here like how do I get my vehicle unstuck out of the mud? I'll tell you how to do that. You get second squad to pull around with their striker and you say, hey, can you hook me up to that wench? Gun it! Bespoke Post will send you a different box each month, and if you keep it, it's $45, and there's about $70 worth of gear in there. Click the link in the description and check it out. Back to the video. When I was in the Army, one of our favorite ways to kill downtime in my old squad was to create hypothetical war game scenarios. Something like who would win in a fight? One single squad of Russian SPETNAZ soldiers or a squad of regular IDF. Then you'd account for all kinds of things like whose home turf are you fighting on? Real military nerd stuff that only Dan Carlin hardcore history fans and lifetime virgins like myself would understand. Part of the reason why military enthusiasts love to say that the IDF soldiers would win in almost any hypothetical situation is because they have conscription, the practice of drafting their soldiers. Every male and female over the age of 18 must complete a mandatory few years of service. The other variable that wargamers try to account for, aside from equipment and training, is the military culture of a country. The Israeli Defense Forces have a never give up philosophy that has helped them pull off seemingly impossible victories against overwhelming numbers. In the Six-Day War, they were way outgunned by 5 different countries, but they beat them all at the same time. They still came out victorious. Would another country's military be able to do the same thing? Many military historians point to the IDF's obvious incentive to win these battles having to do with their families living only a few miles away from where they're fighting. It's important to take note as to exactly why they're investing in such a massive overhaul. With all the incredible feats that the IDF has achieved, there have been some setbacks. There were some hard lessons learned during the 2006 Lebanon War, for instance. This change in weapons was part an attempt to return focus to improving their ground forces, which had fallen into disrepair at the time. So they instituted new protocols to make sure that their officers weren't canceling training last minute like they were doing 25% of the time. Hey, I understand I'd rather go out and party in Tel Aviv also, but sometimes you gotta go do a field training exercise. Hey Cappy, you talking about the IDF? I think I can help you out. I'm one of the 7,000 foreign soldiers who left their home country to return to Israel to complete 3 years of mandatory service. I've heard something like 4% of the IDF is made up of foreign soldiers. That's the highest of any country in the world. Actually, Cappy, I was hoping you could tell us where you stand on the whole Israel— Nope, no, that's okay, really. Are you sure? Because we were just about to debate the conflict between— No, that's all right. Please, tell me about the gun. Stick to that. Okay, have it your way. So the TAR-21 has another advantage over the M4 that you haven't mentioned yet, which is it uses a cold hammer forge process, which makes it more durable, and its barrel holds its accuracy for a longer period of time. Thank you, IDF soldier, for stopping by. There's a great research paper written by the Began Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, written by Amir Raraport, which outlines the lessons learned by the IDF from the 2006 war. One of the major problems was Israel assumed that their Air Force could handle the entire fight. They mistakenly placed too much importance on their air assets while forgetting to keep the ground forces up to standard. The IDF went into battle with insufficient and outdated troop transports. Since then, the IDF has completely revamped their infantry by adding the heavily armored Namur troop transport, as well as the TAR-21 rifle. My question is, could Israel's switch to a Bullpup rifle start a new trend? Is there any chance this could influence the US military to consider switching from the M4 to the Bullpup 6.8mm bid? So the TAR-21 variant fires the familiar 5.56 ammo type at a muzzle velocity of 910 meters per second with a high rate of fire. The tiniest version of the TAVR rifle is insanely small. It's 22 inches long. That thing could fit in my pocket. You'll often see the gun outfitted with an ACOG 4x powered scope to help extend its maximum effective range out past 500 meters. It uses a heavier piston system, which is considered more reliable than the M4's direct impingement styles. Another part of the reason why they switched away from the popular M4 platform is because the TAR-21 is better suited for the IDF's specific purposes and the lessons that their troops have learned on the ground in combat. To this point, it's specifically tailored for the kind of close quarters, urban, narrow street engagements the IDF often finds themselves in. So they wanted it to be as compact as humanly possible while still packing the rifle round punch necessary to go through enemy body armor. The relatively tiny size makes it easier for kicking down doors, swinging around in tight indoor spaces like hallways, and gives the operator the ability to shoot from inside a vehicle with ease. You're probably all wondering the same exact thing as me. What the heck is that giant floppy covering on top of all the IDF soldiers' helmets? A mizzen is a camouflage wrap that stops light from reflecting off of your helmet, and it breaks up your distinctive outline to prevent snipers from easily targeting your silhouette. I know, I pronounced mizzen exactly like how a Roman Catholic guy from Long Island would. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't jealous of the hat covering. It's pretty cool, but I can't figure out for the life of me why this didn't catch on in the military. Meanwhile, everyone and their squad leader's mother is wearing the schmag, the tactical schmag wrap. Another major reason for this switch has to do with production. By creating a completely new weapon, this gives Israel the ability to license it out to different countries. It's manufactured within their own home country by the Israel Weapon Industries. The rifle's namesake comes from the massive TAVR mountain range, which is home to countless historical and biblical battles fought by the Roman and Israeli armies from as far back as 55 BC. How come the US military can't name their rifles after cool historical places so we could shoot the Alamo rifle or something? But one thing is certain, we're gonna see smaller foreign nations paying Israel to adopt their IWI TAR-21 rifle. There are several variants to this gun, including the newer X95, which is only a mere 22 inches long. That's about a foot shorter than the already tiny M4. I think this is one of the solutions where two things can be true at the same time. The M4 might be a better platform for a country that expects more of a mix of environments all around the world, from medium to close range engagements. The TAR-21 looks to be better suited for a purely close-range desert urban engagement. So it weighs about a pound more than their old M4s, and most of that weight is placed towards the rear of the gun, because that's where you're gonna find the heavy bolt, the magazine, ammo, and all the weapon's guts. This rearward weight distribution is a mixed bag for some shooters. Some claim that it makes the rifle easier to quickly shoulder, and that it's easier to hold a shooting position for a longer period of time without being fatigued. Others, though, on the other hand, report that this rear weight makes aiming the gun really uncomfortable. So we're gonna have to chalk that pro and con of the ergonomics up to personal preference. The incredibly small size of the TAR-21 can make it kind of uncomfortable for shooters who prefer to have their non-trigger pulling finger hand way out in front to steady the gun and reduce unintentional barrel movement. I guess I found a new nickname for my left hand, my non-trigger pulling hand. The Bullpup design places the shooter's face right next to the ejection port, and as much as I love the smell of gunpowder in the morning, I don't necessarily want to be directly inhaling all the ejection debris. So much fouling gases are released close to the shooter's face that it leaves a black smudge, which shooters have nicknamed TAVR face. It's also known as the MTAR, which for some reason makes me think of a Minotaur. I hope this doesn't awaken something in me. It's easy to point to Israel's military tests where the TAR-21 beat the M4 rifle in every testing category from malfunctions to accuracy, and you could look at that and say, it's better than the M4. But let's be real here. The Israeli military specifically commissioned the TAR-21 from their formerly state-run firearms manufacturer to replace the M4. It was never going to lose those tests. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It's just something to consider when you think about where the potential bias was in those tests where the M4 lost to the TAR-21. We see many countries are switching from the Bullpup platform, like France dropping the FAMAS for the HK416. With the IDF switching to a Bullpup, it means we're likely to continue seeing these guns for years to come. Before you go, I want to tell you about our new channel we just started called Task and Purpose First Squad. You can find it right there. It's got longer form content on the topics that you love, military news and military culture. So thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Chris Cappy from Task and Purpose. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out our other videos while you're here, especially this one on the M16.